going on, guys? Brunson 31. Appreciate you guys tuning in. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the uniform, gear, weapons, and equipment that I carried along with some of my buddies carried on our second deployment in the summer of 2004 while being part of Bravo Company 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, attached to the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit. Now, this deployment was very significant because we would end up getting engaged in a large ground combat battle between us and the Mahdi army led by Matada al-Sadr in a 1,000-year-old Shia cemetery, which was the largest in the world. And the battle was incredibly intensive. The Marines and sailors that fought in that battle performed heroically and did some amazing stuff there. And for the sake of history, that a lot of people want to know what we carried and used during that particular time. It was a very transitional time in the Marine Corps. We were getting new weapons, uniforms, optics, all kinds of stuff. And it's a very interesting time in our Marine Corps history. So I thought I'd want to present to you guys, especially on the 20-year anniversary, just a snapshot of what we used. And I know a lot of you guys would appreciate that. So let's first dive in and we'll go over uniforms first. All right, guys, first thing we're going to talk about are our uniforms. So again, very transitional time in our Marine Corps history, and that's showcased very well by our uniforms, right? Because the vast majority of us had M81 woodland camouflage and subsequently 3-color desert camis on our first deployment. And then the new Marine Corps digital MARPAT camouflage was getting introduced around mid to late 2002. So primarily the guys that had the digital desert MARPAT were guys that were issued it in recruit training, or guys like me that got issued the old M81 woodland camouflage and issued 3-color desert utilities that went to the PX and bought a pair when it became available before we left. So I only had one set of the desert MARPAT. The rest of it was all issued tricolor desert, and the vast majority of us would be wearing the tricolor desert utilities. So they were just the standard, as most of you are probably very familiar with, BDU style utility uniform. It was the exact same as the M81 woodland camouflage pattern uniform. It's just in a tricolor desert camouflage pattern. But 4 pockets on the front, no pockets on the sleeves. You had a service tape on your left breast, and you had to iron on a Marine Corps emblem on the left breast pocket. Your name tape was on the right, and that was pretty much it, guys. Nothing crazy about these utilities. They're just your standard BDU style utilities. Button cuffs on the sleeves and reinforced elbows. But no crazy, raid mods or anything like that. Marine Corps is big on uniformity, so, and we're, regular infantrymen, so we're gonna be uniform. So that's what we wore. That's what the blouse looked like. The trousers are, typical BDU style trousers. You have large cargo pockets on each side on the pant, reinforced knees, and you had a front pocket and 2 rear pockets in the back. Reinforced seat and adjustable waist tabs on the sides. Button-up fly, typical BDU cut trousers. So again, that's what the vast majority of us were issued before we left for this deployment. What kind of belt do we have? Well, at the time I was a gray belt. Now, what does that mean? The Marine Corps has a martial arts program, the Marine Corps martial arts program called MCMAP. And you go through a series of training evolutions, and as you progress in your martial arts training, you get different colored belts. And at this particular time, I was a gray belt before leaving on that deployment. So you start off as a tan belt, and the next step up is a gray belt. And considering that I was a Lance Corporal going on my second deployment, a gray belt is pretty much falls in line with where I would have been at with my martial arts training at that time. Headwear. So while we were in garrison in the States, right before we left, we started wearing our tricolors back at Camp Horno at Camp Pendleton. And the boonie cover is a field cover. So you're not supposed to be wearing it in garrison. So we actually would have to go out and buy tricolor desert 8-point covers. And this was the one I had. And as you guys can see, my name's written in it, and that was it. And essentially, we only wore these while we were in the rear or I can't remember if we wore them in Kuwait or not. Probably not. I think the only time we actually wore these were in the rear and getting on the ship. So 8-point covers were, again, a garrison cover and not for field use. The primary headgear that we wore was the boonie cover. And this is my actual boonie cover that I deployed with. And again, very transitional time. You guys can see I got a Desert Marpat name tape sewn on the back of my boonie. And this was something we were supposed to do. We were supposed to put name tapes on the back of our boonies. But you guys can see, oh, that was another thing we had to do. We didn't have the luxury of, you know, having an embroidered Eagle Globe and Anchor. We actually had to iron on our Eagle Globe and Anchor. So these things sometimes didn't come out as you would quite like. So you guys can see that my Eagle Globe and Anchor didn't come out the best, but you guys can just see all the sweat stains and everything else. There's my name written in there. It's starting to come out, but yeah, this was my boonie, guys, on deployment for my second deployment. And all the stains and the dirt marks and the sweat marks, all that stuff is from my actual deployment in 2004. When I came back, all this stuff essentially went in a box, and now it just sits in a display case. So I've kept all this pretty much intact, and this is the same belt that I wore. You guys can see all the wear and tear on the buckle and everything else. It's all my original stuff. Let's talk about the Marpat uniform. So this was introduced. I don't think this was the actual original utilities Desert Marpat uniform that I had. I think this is one I had later, but it's the exact same style and everything else. So significant upgrade in terms of construction of the uniform, guys. You guys can see that the pockets are now slanted. The name tapes are also slanted now, as opposed to being straight up and down. Just makes it a little bit easier to get into. One of the best new features are pockets on the sleeves, which are fantastic because, you know, while you're wearing your gear and your body armor, it's hard to access these pockets, so they essentially become useless. So having, you know, pockets on the sleeves is a significant advantage. We still got reinforced elbows, and you guys can see that they omitted the pockets on the lower end of the blouse there. And then that's the back. Nothing crazy or spectacular about that. And that's it. But you guys can see the tags now. This is a Marine Corps specific garment, all right? No other branch of the U.S. military is wearing Marpat. So the tags even, you know, say in here, Department of the Navy, United States Marine Corps, and then made especially for Marines. So fantastic. But this was the new uniform that replaced or was starting to phase out the older 3-color desert uniform. But again, the vast majority of us had the 3-color desert during this deployment. The trousers here, very similar to the BDU trousers. The pocket is a little bit different. You guys can see it's still pleated. Name tape on the back right above the your ass pockets. Reinforced seat, and that's pretty much it. Very similar to your BDU style utilities. Yeah, so it just says trousers, Desert Marpat, camouflage, MCC, UU. So I think that stands for Marine Corps Combat Utility Uniform. A lot of the newer Marpat trousers that you'll pick up now will, you know, have a tag in there saying it's pre-treated for, you know, insect repellent. But that's pretty much it. So these were the 2 uniforms that we went down range with. The Desert Marpat and the 3-color desert. And the boonie here, significant upgrade. As you guys can see, it's got some like fleece type material in there to collect sweat, and an adjustable drawstring, which is a little bit different than the older model that just had a leather tab on it. So that's it, about the same. One thing I did notice is that the our 3-color desert did not have the, you know, foliage band that goes around that. So other than that, the boonies themselves are constructed very similarly. So what do we wear underneath the uniform? So let's take a look at that. So up here I got 2 examples of some skivvy shirts that were from that particular time period, 2 different companies. This one's made by Sophie, and the tag you can kind of see there, it says DSCP by MJ Sophie, large, and it even has an NSN number on it. And I know this is a period shirt because looking at this, I can see, even though it's starting to fade away, I can still read my old boot camp number on there. It says 2089. So that was my recruit class number, and you had to take a stencil and stencil your recruit class number on your skivvy shirt. So this one was actually one that was from my recruit training. So I know it's from that period of time. So this is the kind of skivvy shirt we would have had at that particular time. Another one that I know was from that time period, it's made by Duke. It says Duke Athletic Performance, and pretty much same thing. It's just a little bit darker green, but this are 2 examples of the type of skivvy shirts that you would find in the PX and you would buy for your uniform for deployment. Socks, 2 examples here. The 2 colors that were authorized for wear with the uniform were OD socks and black socks. So you had to wear one of those 2 colors. You couldn't wear any white socks or anything like that with your Marine Corps utility uniform. So same rules apply overseas. It had to be one of these 2 colors. So these are 2 examples of the type of socks that we were wearing over there. Other types of t-shirts that we would wear. So unit shirts are always big in the military. This is a unit shirt. You guys can see it's got our battalion logo there, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, whatever it takes. And on the front and then on the back, our call sign was Pale Rider. So I believe that this shirt was the shirt that we got coming back from our first deployment in 2003 for the Iraq invasion. So this was our battalion t-shirt that came out, or we got issued while we were over there for that deployment. And obviously a lot of guys would take this on their second deployment over there and wear it because there's a lot of unit pride in the Marines. So whoever you're with. Another example, this was definitely a period shirt for me, but you guys can see battalion logo. Let's see sweat stains all over this thing, plus holes and all kinds of stuff, blown out armpits, but it also has our battalion logo on the back. So I know they sold these skivvy shirts at the PX at Camp Horno, so I'm pretty sure I probably bought this before we deployed, but this is another example which you'd see guys wear routinely. About halfway through our deployment, Under Armour shirts started to get popular. Now I can't remember if they sold these at the PX or if we had to put in an order with through the company while we were over there, and they ordered them in mass. But we got these while there, and you guys can see the Under Armour logo, and you can't read the tag anymore. But I remember getting this about halfway through my deployment, and these, everybody loved these, right? Under Armour was pulls moisture away from your body. This was all the rage, and I even got sent the same type. It's not Under Armour, but I got sent this by my parents, and it made its way over there. It's called BCG brand. I'm sure my parents just bought this at a sporting goods store, and they sent this over to me, which is funny because after our deployment, we ended up hearing that they banned the use of Under Armour because once the IED threat picked up, guys were wearing this type of stuff over there, and we're getting involved in IED strikes, and this Under Armour material is actually melting their skin. So they banned the use of Under Armour in theater. But while I was there, we were allowed to wear that stuff. So that was, again, another example of some of the stuff that we were wearing in country. All right. I'm sure this is what everybody wants to talk about. Our underwear. What do we wear for underwear? Well, you have options. Obviously, you can go commando, not wear anything at all. But if you're the kind of guy that wore underwear, which I was, this was like the issued underwear. I got these in country. So at some point, our supply picked up underwear, and if we needed it, we could get it, and I got this from the company. So yeah, these are just regular issued USGI underwear. So that was an example of underwear that was supplied to us in country. What did I primarily wear though? Like, what did I leave here and would buy and would wear on a routine basis? Freaking Marine Corps issued silkies, baby. Arrgh! Increased combat effectiveness by 10% at minimum. So as you guys can see, these are really worn out. These are made by Sophie, and these are just fantastic. I love silkies. Used to, in recruit training, you would buy these towards the end of the recruit training, and then I think it was the Thursday before you graduated, you go on a moto run, and everybody'd be wearing silkies. They used to be you know, a staple of Marine Corps pride and tradition, right? But now the Marine Corps banned the use of PTing and silkies. You can still buy them in the PX and wear them as underwear, but you can't wear them as a workout attire anymore, unfortunately. So, but these are, you know, they have the liner inside there, and then they even have a little like hideaway key thing. But these are just fantastic. I've always loved wearing these Marine Corps silkies for PT. Now, obviously you guys can see that these are extremely faded from over the years and years of service. This is what they're supposed to look like. And the only unfortunate thing with the silkies is, besides the fact that the elastic over time, you know, wears out, is eventually the liner would rip. So like this would rip, right? And it'd become very annoying, and you'd have to cut out the liner. So if you wanted to continue the use, and if you're in the middle of Iraq where, you know, supplies aren't exactly the easiest thing to get a hold of, you just cut out the liner so that you can continue to wear them. And that's obviously what I did here with this particular pair. So what else? Marine Corps PT shorts, still used by the Marine Corps today. Quick drying. This is kind of like wearing freaking swim trunks, essentially, because they have a liner in here as well. But, you know, a lot of guys wear these as underwear from time to time. You do it a lot in recruit training, so I'm sure, without a doubt, dudes were still wearing it. But what did we primarily use these for? Well, any type of leisure, right? If you're not on a patrol, if you're inside the wire, you're on the fob, or whatever the case may be, and you're relaxing, you're not standing post, you'd probably put these on so that you're not wearing your camis 24/7. So there's that. What else? Our Marine Corps issue sweatpants. These are absolutely period correct. These are probably the ones, these are probably mine. Yeah, there's a tag right there. Same tag that's in the skivvy shirts, essentially. But these are made by Sophie. As you guys can see, they're essentially just green PT sweats, and they have the Marine Corps logo here on the left leg. Still same type of sweats used today. Sweatshirt, OD green sweatshirt, Marine Corps logo on the left breast, and then same tag. And I can see I wrote my name in there. But believe it or not, despite popular belief, it does get chilly in Iraq, especially in the wintertime. And, you know, sweats were something we would routinely wear. Just like the PT shorts. If you weren't wearing a utility uniform, you'd probably put on your sweats. Especially the sweatshirt. Sweatshirt was absolutely a warming layer that a lot of us used. What else do we have for warming layers? So we would be issued, we call them polypros. So your polypro bottoms, this is an example of them. All right, and then you had a polypro top, which just a zipper would zip up, and you can see it's kind of like turns into like a turtleneck there. But this is kind of like a sleep shirt, or just you know, if it was chilly, you'd put this on, and then you'd have a little bit of a warming layer underneath your camis. So again, you know, people don't think Iraq and associate cold weather with it, but I'm telling you, it absolutely does get cold in the wintertime there. So you definitely needed warming layers. So again, transitional time, guys. For cold weather, we had a forest green Polartec pullover, and this is what most of the guys had in 2003 Iraq for the initial invasion. And then all the guys that were checking in after the fact for the second deployment, we're subsequently getting these new Coyote fleece pullovers. Same basic design, as you guys can see. I'd say one key difference I saw is the tag right here that says made especially for United States Marines. is on the back on the green one, and then on the Coyote Brown tag, you have a smaller tag inside the garment itself, and it's no longer on the back. So that's one thing to note. The watch caps, the fleece watch caps, when we had the issued forest green pullovers, you got issued a black watch cap initially, and then all the subsequent guys got the new Coyote Brown pullovers with a Coyote style watch cap. Now, somewhere along the lines, I acquired a Coyote watch cap. I don't know where I got it. I don't know if I got it at a PX before I deployed, or if I bought it in country, or whatever the case may be. But I remember being issued a black watch cap, and then I see pictures towards the end of my deployment where I'm wearing a watch cap and I have a Coyote one. So I definitely had a forest green fleece pullover, and definitely was issued a black watch cap, but I subsequently got a Coyote watch cap at some point during that deployment. Also want to point out the green glove liners, fantastic for keeping your hands warm and whatnot. But you can see that they got USMC printed on the trigger fingers, made by Manzella. And then on the opposite side, you also have these grip dots for the palms, which is different than older, more vintage wool knit liner gloves. We had neck gaiters. It's kind of the old school military brown neck gaiter. I also had this. This is it's called a Recon Wrap. It was made by a company called Spec Ops, which I don't think is in business anymore. But I had bought this at a PX in Kuwait prior to the invasion in 2003, and I wore it all through the invasion, and I took it back for OIF2, and this was just a fantastic piece of gear. You could wear it as a neck gaiter, you could wear it over your face to keep warm, you could wear it as a bandana underneath your Kevlar helmet to absorb sweat, whatever the case may be. Just a great piece of gear. A lot of guys had these. These were, I can't remember where the heck I got these from, but you guys can see it's even dated 2003. So these were either given out in OAF1 or OAF2. I got this somewhere, but it was on one of those two deployments, and they were just, 3-color desert handkerchiefs or bandanas with a Bible verse on it. A lot of guys, use those as do-rags and everything else. I wore Nomex flight gloves. These aren't the exact ones I had during OAF2 or AF1, but very similar, essentially the same. The only thing I can say is that the fingers blow out on flight gloves after use for a while, and I cut the fingertips off and continued to use them. So I wore the same pair of flight gloves for both deployments. But that's what I primarily used, was the Nomex flight gloves. But obviously, if it got cold, I could throw on the, the glove liners. And then we also had the M1950 leather gloves, which were primarily for work. But that was warm weather or cold weather gear. If it was raining, you could throw on your Gore-Tex top. And this is the Army had something similar, but this one, our Marine ones, were straight Marine. You can see the Eagle Globe and Anchor in there. So they were made specifically for the Marine Corps. I don't know if what the differences are, if there is any difference at all, but these were the Gore-Tex top and bottoms that we had. So again, you could wear those for rain. I can't remember a single time where I wore Gore-Tex pants. It was a long time ago, so maybe I did, but I'm sure at some point probably threw on a Gore-Tex parka for some rain protection. It also had a poncho. You guys can see I'm using it as a tablecloth here, but this was the poncho. Did not have the digital Marpat woodland ponchos yet. They were the standard woodland camouflage grip stop material ponchos, and that's what we had. So that's what we used. So one other thing I wanted to add was this is a laundry bag, and this is definitely the one I had over there with me because although I've remarked on this tag on a later deployment to Afghanistan, I can see underneath it some of the faded writing and my initials and last four and things like that. So I know this is the laundry bag that I had over there in 2004. So, but this is what you put your laundry in, and you had this big oversized safety pin here. So you would put your laundry inside, you would tie it off or use these ties, whatever the case may be, and then you stick this safety pin through there, and then you would turn in this laundry bag, and then your laundry would get done right there on the fob by some sort of service. So that's how we did laundry over there, if that service was available. If not, you were washing your own stuff in probably an ammo can with some laundry detergent. All right, so what boots did we wear? So again, very transitional time period. These are the boots that I first stepped off with and deployed with. These were the brand new Marine Corps combat boots that had just came out. They're a suede, coyote brown type boot. And before that, in our previous deployment, we were issued the older tan suede jungle boots. But for this deployment, we were given, or at least I bought, some of these newer boots. So I can't recall if they issued us another pair of the older tan suede ones or not. But regardless, this is the pair of boots that I stepped off with and would end up wearing for the vast majority of my deployment there. And these were fantastic boots. And which was really cool is we were actually allowed to wear these coyote boots with our M81 Woodland camis back in the rear when they first came out, because again, it was a transitional phase. So they were allowing guys to wear interchangeably, either black boots or the suede boots with either uniform. So you could be in digital Woodland camis and wearing the old black boots. I remember seeing a guy with green jungle boots on with his digital Woodland camis, and I thought that would look fantastic. But a lot of us, especially infantrymen, would go for the new suede coyote boots because, hey, it was great, man. You went to the field, you did your training on the field, you come back, and when your boots are all dirty and mucked up and everything else, hey, you didn't have to polish them now. Now you could just beat them or spray them down, and they were good to go. So there was no more time wasted, putting in making that nice polished jungle boot, which looks fantastic, obviously, but in terms of being an infantryman, like the last thing you want to do after coming out of the field for several days is, spit shining boots. So these were fantastic. I went out to the PX and I bought me a pair of these. And these are, again, the newer boots. You guys can see I wrote A positive, that's my blood type. And then I got 41 written there, which I assume maybe is a kill number. I don't recall anymore, unfortunately. So again, guys, this was 20 years ago. So, but you guys can see it written on the bottom of the boot and as well as at the top of the boot there. But these were brand new at the time. All of us were required to keep a dog tag in our left boot, and so you'd keep that down there for, if you got killed or you're in an accident or a motorcycle, and it's one, or not a motorcycle, but a helicopter crash. That's one way they could help identify your body. All this dirt, muck, and gum, and all this other crap that's on these boots is all from Iraq, guys. When these boots, as you guys can see, I blew out the heels over there. But once they became unserviceable like that, instead of throwing these away, being the collector that I am, I put them in a box, and I had enough sense in me to mail them home to my parents. And they went in a box, and once they came out of the box, they went into the display case. So all of this stuff is just original freaking Iraq dirt, grime, and guck, and all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty cool. You guys can see that these boots have been through hell, and you can see how the tread's worn down on them and everything else. So, but that's pretty much it. These boots have a tag in here that says Gore-Tex Best Defense. So there's obviously Gore-Tex mixed in with the canvas there, which I'm kind of surprised because, looking at these, they are definitely hot weather boots. At least they look like it, but there's no vent holes, so these are these are a cold weather version. That's what I was wearing, I guess, over there. So I would have thought that I had the hot weather jungle style boot, but apparently not. But this is what I rocked, guys. Freaking 12.5 regular Marine Corps combat boot. Later on in the deployment, obviously, you guys can see the heels are blown out. I had to replace these with some Army jungle boots, so the tan ones at the time. So the Army was still wearing the tan jungle boots. So I remember going to a PX and buying and purchasing a pair of those to replace these about halfway through my deployment because these weren't making it. So you got to remember, by the time by the time I got to Iraq, I'd already done a full workup cycle, training workup cycle before deploying. So, you know, these boots already have wear and tear on them, so they only last about halfway through the deployment before you gotta replace them. So, but this is what I wore primarily, and it's definitely what I wore during the Battle of An-Najaf. All right, so here's a few examples of some personal items that guys probably would have had on them. I know I did. So let's talk about hygiene equipment first. Here's 2 hygiene kits. So these are 2 hygiene kits that I was issued in recruit training. I think you got issued like 3. One would be your hygiene bag, and then you'd convert 2 of them into for different uses, like shining your boots as well as rifle cleaning kit bag. But these were 2 different ones that I was issued. This is obviously an older model, and this is the one that replaced it, but I was issued both when I went through. So that's an example of a hygiene kit that's, you know, an individual Marine might have had on them. And again, you keep all your hygiene stuff in there, shower gear, stuff like that. Towels, OD green, Marine towel. That's the one you're issued in recruit training. That's the one that was probably sold at PX's. Brown towel, same thing. If you go to like an Army PX, you probably could have picked up a towel. Guy could have had a civilian bought towel, but I know a lot of guys had military issue towels as well. Your toothbrush and soap were kept in little containers like this, and you'd put that in your hygiene gear as well. And then you'd have a little bullshit mirror that you know bought at the PX like this, and that's what you shaved with. Speaking of shaving, this is a little individual shaver. All right, so electric shaver, and this is the exact one I took in country. I bought this at the PX at Camp Horno. So most Marines, or at least a lot of Marines, probably had this exact model in OIF2. That's because that's exactly what I used and carried and would continue to use for years later. It's just convenient and easy to take a shaver like this to the field instead of having to shave with a regular razor. Absolutely had regular shaving equipment, you know, a razor and shaving cream and stuff like that. But, you know, for those days where you needed to do it quickly or you're out in the field and you needed to shave, that little tiny portable electric shaver was the way to go. Personal wristwatch. So this isn't the exact watch band that I had in OIF2, but it's, you know, it's similar. But guys would have had a cheap watch on, you know, probably like $20 from Walmart or something like that. I wore a watch band, as you guys can see in some of the pictures I'm putting up. But, you know, having a timepiece was essential. And being an infantryman, you didn't spend much money on a watch because, you know, more often than not, I was going to get jacked up. So shower shoes, little bullshit shower shoes. Yeah, these are the type that are, you know, typically sold at the PX, not very expensive. Guys would have had those. Going on deployment, you probably spent a little money and got a little bit better, you know, shower shoes than those ones because those are going to last you for, you know, a few months and then blow out. But nonetheless, guys would have had shower shoes on them. So Walkman, so you can listen to your CDs. That's right, CDs. And, you know, probably everybody had a Walkman on them. You know, listen to music when you're not on, you know, at a post or on a patrol or on a mission or wherever the case may be. This is a little personal DVD player. So, you know, I had this in OIF2, and this is what you'd watch movies on. So you'd take a bunch of DVDs with you and a CD book, and you could watch movies that way. There was also Iraqi Bazaars where they had a bunch of bootlegs. I remember watching like several seasons of Sopranos over there on my second deployment through a little portable DVD player like that. I think this is actually the one I took over there too. So last thing I got out here is an OIF2 handbook. This is the original OIF2 handbook, and this would just have containing in it just, you know, different things pertaining to our mission. So this is the kind of stuff that we would get prior to going in country. And it would have battalion SOPs, as you guys can see, ROEs, rules of engagement, some different information. Again, there's ROEs, rules of force or use of force. So just have different stuff. Report formats in here, salute reports, call for fire, things like that. 9-line brief for close air support. 6-line brief for rotary ring CAS, that's close air support. Patrol report, obstacle report. So you guys can see a bunch of different reporting formats in here.
So this is a cool little book. I'm glad I still have it. So, but it just has a bunch of different stuff, battalion SOPs. Here's something very interesting, different enemy threat weapon information. It's a Browning high power right there. All different kind of cool stuff. So, hell, I could probably do a video alone on this information right here alone. So, common words translating in Arabic for use. So, in any event, so that was the OAF 2 handbook for 1st Marine Division. And the motto of the 1st Marine Division: no better friend, no worse enemy.
All right, moving into body armor. So what protected us against enemy shrapnel and small arms fire? So the body armor of the time and what we wore in country was the Interceptor Vest. So the vast majority of us had the woodland camouflage pattern Interceptor Vest. Virtually all of the guys that went down Ranger in 2003 Iraq invasion had the woodland Interceptor Vest. There was a sprinkle of guys getting the new Interceptor Vest in the Coyote pattern in 2003. When we went back in 2004, it was, I'd say, for the most part, most guys still had woodland, but there's a lot more dudes with Coyote vests. And why is that? Is because all the Marines that were checking in following our first deployment, so our new Marines, were getting issued the new Coyote vest, right? This is what we were going to with the new digital Marpat uniforms. All of our body armor, all of our common equipment was going to be in the new Coyote color because it could be used both in the desert as well as a woodland environment. So that was what the Marine Corps was transitioning to. So let's take a look at the Interceptor Vest real quick. This opens up just like so. So you put it on like you were putting on a jacket or a vest. Your arms go through there, and then this would fold over into that, and then the flap would close such as that, okay? You guys can see that it has MOLLE all over the front as well as a little bit on the back, but I'll tell you right now that the primary use of these vests were just as the body armor. Most of us wore exterior web equipment, which I'll show you here in a little while, but it did give you that capability of attaching things to the vest itself. But as you guys can see, with the way this vest attaches, right, you start loading down this vest like this, you know, that Velcro doesn't, that Velcro and buttons had a tendency to pop off after time, all right, because the Velcro wears down, those buttons aren't the strongest, and if you're really loading these vests down with equipment, they would pop open. But these things were designed to be intended to be used with the fighting load carrier, the DeGear, that would go over this, that we'll talk about here in a little while, okay? What was fantastic about this vest is essentially it was modular. Okay, you guys can see on the inside there's a collar. This collar is removable. You also have a groin protector that was removable, so you could wear, you know, as much armor as you wanted or strip it down to bare bones depending on, you know, your personal preference or command directed, whatever the case may be. Another fantastic feature about the Interceptor Vest, which wasn't on its predecessor, the Personal Armor System Ground Troop Pasget vest that was used in like Desert Storm and leading up to the introduction of the Interceptor, this had the capability of accepting a SAPI plate, a small arms protective insert plate that could stop enemy small arms fire, okay? Up to 7.62 by 39 shot by like a weapon like an AK-47, or 7.62 by 54R shot by a weapon like a Dragunov SVD. These plates had the capability of stopping. These were rifle round stopping plates, okay? If you were to get hit without this plate, those type of rounds would sail right through. But the Interceptor allowed you to insert that SAPI plate, right? Go inside, and then you close it up, and then there you go. You had protection on the front, as well as there was a pocket on the back where a plate could be inserted, okay? And then obviously you guys can see the vest itself could be tightened up in the back as well for the individual user. So another piece of protective equipment that I need to point out is this throw protector. So the throw protector was a completely independent piece from the body armor. As you guys can see, it's got a section of buttons on the left and on the right, as well as a Velcro part. And these would button in onto the collar. You guys can see the male ends over here on the collar. So you button that in. And then you open that up, and when this wasn't in use by me, I would simply just attach this to this middle section like that. And that way I wouldn't lose this throat protector. It'd always be attached to my flak. But when I did need to use it, I pull it off, and then this Velcro attaches right there. And then you come around and attach this to the other side of your neck piece. And that's how it attached, just like that. And now you have protection of your throat area. So it does have a drag handle. All right, so you could carry this by your body armor by that drag handle, or if you know, one of your buddies was wounded or something and you needed to drag him out of the line of fire, you could grab him by that handle and pull him, and his body would come with that body armor, assuming that you were a beast enough to drag a fully combat equipped Marine. But this was the primary body armor of the day, and you know, I wore this in the 2003 Iraq invasion. I wore it in 2004, and to this day, guys, I still have a soft spot for Interceptor Vest. I see a lot of hate on it online and stuff, but I think mostly that's because of the issue with it, you know, popping open. But that's because dudes were stacking all this equipment and stuff on this. When you wore this vest the way it was intended to be worn with the exterior DeGear, I thought it was fantastic. And I still think the exterior DeGear is the way to go, just because, you know, when you're fighting a fight like we were fighting, particularly during the 2003 Iraq invasion, we were digging fighting positions all the time. And every night that we stopped, or anytime we stopped for extended period of times, we had to dig fighting positions. Gave you the opportunity to take that DeGear off, so you're just sitting there with your flak and Kevlar for protection against indirect fire, and you could sit there and dig your fighting position without having all that weight from your fighting load carrier on your person. So I still love the Interceptor, guys, and I thought this was a fantastic vest, and obviously it got me through 2 combat deployments. So, but that was our body armor, the Interceptor vest made by Point Blank. So because of the growing threat at the time of improvised explosive devices, body armor additions were kept getting made for this Interceptor vest. And one of those additions, which we got about halfway through our deployment, was these. We called them shoulder pads, but they're just, you know, they're made out of the same Kevlar style material that's used on the Interceptor vest, but they were to plus up your protection on your shoulders. So this would go on the inside, just like that, and then you guys can see it makes a little hole right there that your arm would go through. This would obviously attach to go underneath the shoulder, and then your arm would go in here, and then you would just simply strap this around your arm. So just pretty much turns your upper torso into a more protective for the areas that are exposed. So these were particularly good for guys like myself, who are machine gunners up in turrets, you know, because this is what's exposed, right? So now, literally, the only thing that's unprotected on your body is essentially just your, you know, part of your face, because you got upper torso protection almost all the way around. So this was another enhancement that they did, or addition that they made to the Interceptor vest to plus up our body armor. As you guys can see in here, it says size, one size, so it's one size fits all. Body armor, Interceptor, arm protector. So just one more thing that was rushed into production once the IED threat became more prevalent. Next, we're going to talk about our helmets. So I got 2 different helmets here, and the reason for that is because, again, transitional period. When I first deployed, I had an older style Pasget helmet. Same helmet I had during the 2003 Iraq invasion. And, you know, it had a traditional suspension system inside there. You guys can see, not much. Okay, you could buy something like this, a little foam pad at the PX, to make it a little bit more comfortable. But literally just a, you know, a leather headband inside the helmet, and that was the suspension system. And the chin strap was just a singular chin strap that buttoned. And there you go. And that's how you wore your helmet. That's all you had. And this is the same helmet that our guys used in, you know, like Panama and Desert Storm and those operations. And we used it in, again, the 2003 Iraq invasion, and that's what we first deployed with. I'll talk more about this night vision setup here in a minute. But after the Battle of An-Najaf, we would be issued a new lightweight or lighter weight helmet with a new suspension system. Also want to point out, guys, that you guys can see that our helmet cover is a digital MARPAT. And when we deployed on our second deployment, we were issued Desert MARPAT helmet cover. So our first deployment, we had 3-color Desert ones, but everybody had the Desert MARPAT helmet cover, and that's what we all deployed with. So we were wearing 3-color, most of us were wearing 3-color Desert utilities, but we had digital Desert MARPAT helmet covers. And I also want to point out here, so we would have this black square here, and then we'd have an IR glint tape square here. You can't see it, but you can see the glue. Obviously, my square is gone. This is my original helmet, guys. We're not going to talk about how I ended up with this, but this is my original helmet that I had over there. You guys can see that the you know, the squares are there, and this one has came off. And our name tape were required to be added to the back. So essentially, you just cut the name tape and then shoe glue it on the back. Or if you wanted to get it more professionally done, you would you know, take it and get sewn out in town or whatnot. But that was that all had to be done prior to deploying. So you can see I have a Ranger band around my helmet, and then there's a black safety pin holding it secure. It's obviously the original one I had. You can see it's already deteriorating, but that came from a bandolier. That's where we'd get those. And then I'd weave in, we got issued these new goggles, and these are the exact same. This is all original shit, guys. These are my goggles from that deployment. Now, I have to be very careful with these because unbeknown to me, I had pulled this out to do a Marine Corps uniform video a year or two ago, and the plastic on this is extremely brittle now. These goggles are over 20 years old, or at least 20 years old, and they've you know, they don't withstand much. I think I just grabbed them. As you guys can see, they're kind of flopping back and forth, but I had grabbed them to move them down, and then I felt the nose piece actually snap off in there. But these goggles are the exact same as these. There's just a pair that I was issued later on in life, in my Marine Corps career. You can see that the original cover was all black. That would later be changed down the road to tan. But this is what they look like, guys. Just ESS ballistic goggles, and these provide some ballistic protection to your eyes. And they are adjustable. That's the exact same type of goggles that's on this Kevlar helmet. You guys can also see that I have a Marine Corps emblem ironed on to the helmet cover. That's something we all did. So the thing about this helmet cover is it's reversible. Now, this was the new suspension system on the lighter weight Kevlar helmet. You guys can see it still has a chin strap, but there's a 4-point adjustment here. Okay, and it comes back around the nape. Inside there, I just took my my foam pad from my Pasget helmet and just put it in there just for some extra comfort. But there's a little net piece in there for where your head sits on. It's still like a leather sweatband, and I just added another sweat absorbing piece that I think I bought from a PX somewhere at some point in my Marine Corps career up to that point. So, but this is my original helmet, guys. This is the one I wore. Again, I got issued this helmet. I had to trade in my freaking Pasget helmet in theater after the Battle of An-Najaf. So I went through the invasion and the Battle of An-Najaf with an original Pasget helmet like this. Went through those combat experiences, and then right after that, they made me swap out for the new lighter weight helmet in theater. So my original helmet got taken from me, and God knows where it is nowadays. It probably went to some Iraqi National Guard unit member, and is probably in a trash pile somewhere to this day. But this was the helmet that they issued us. So again, I got this halfway through the deployment, and then you guys can also see it has the Marine Corps emblem here on the nape strap. And the helmet cover, unlike the original helmet covers that we had that were 3-color Desert, these are
reversible. So one side's a digital woodland, the other side is a digital desert. So, but that is the helmet, guys. So that's what you protected your brain housing group with. Also, I want to add is we had gotten issued these Oakleys. These aren't the original ones I had, but they're the same model. And they came in a little hard case like this. And then they were just ballistic Oakley M frames. You'd get two lenses. One was tinted and one was clear. Obviously, you wear your tinted during the day. And then for night operations, you put the clear lenses on so that you could see at night, and your NVGs could go on top of those as well. So, but that's what we wore in terms of protection for our torso and our head and obviously our eyes. I also want to point out, although most of us were issued these newer ESS style goggles, there were some guys that were still running the older sun, wind, dust goggles. And these were what we primarily had during the 2003 Iraq invasion. And some guys were still using these in 2004. So I don't know what the case may be. I don't know if they preferred these over the ESS or they just didn't get issued the ESS goggles. But there's definitely photos that I have that have guys wearing the older model goggles. All right, now we're gonna start talking about gear, what everybody always loves. So this is the Molly 2 Fighting Load Carrier. We all just simply refer to it as Deuce gear. This was fantastic in the sense that, hey, you didn't need to wear this with your flak. You could wear it with or without the flak. So if you had it on with the flak, you just put it on, you buckled it up, and if you needed to wear it without the flak, you took your flak off, you put it on, and then you could just simply tighten these buckles here. Okay, I've tried to set this up as best as I could based on my memory and photographs that I have from the time and how I had it all set up. So let's just kind of go through this, and I'll give you guys a good idea how I wore my gear back then. So this is the OKC-3 Marine Corps bayonet. This replaced the old pig stickers that Marines have been using since Vietnam, and we used on our previous deployment in 2003 Iraq invasion. So, but this is the brand new bayonet that was just introduced, and this is the first time that we were going to get the opportunity to take this and use it in combat. So I attached it right here on my left side of my Deuce gear, as you guys can see. Also over here I had a double magazine pouch, so that holds two 30-round Stanag M16 magazines. I also had this is a pouch for like a 100-round nutsack for an M249 squad automatic weapon, or it could hold, I believe, 4 M16 magazines. What I would use this for is just a general purpose pouch. You know, I just stuffed a beanie or a watch cap and a neck gaiter in there. But I also used it a lot to hold these M16s magazines on a coupler, a mag coupler, all right, inside there, because it would fit perfectly. And that's how I would transport those. So I'd have one on my gear, all right? So I'd have one on my gear and then one inside the weapon. And that's how I rolled. And I had 2 of those, as you guys can see. I got one on the opposite side, and I already have a coupler in there. But, you know, if this wasn't loaded down with magazines, I would just use it as a general purpose pouch from my memories. So that was that. Jump over the other side, and then we'll start working our way to the back. So on the top here were 2 grenade pouches for M67 fragmentation grenades. So how these work, they have a button closure. Inside the pouch was a little nylon strip there. So you would take this grenade, and then put the spoon through that nylon strap, and then there you go, the grenade's secured in there, and then come over the top, button that down, and that's how that pocket held grenades. You could also use these to hold a USGI compass. As a machine gunner in 0331, especially as a team leader, you were issued a compass because it was necessary for when you were laying in the M240
you know, if you had a PDF or you're making a range card or something along those lines, you needed the azimuth to certain targets, a compass could go in there as well. And one of the great things about, you know, MOLLE webbing is that you could actually, you know, route this through. And then throw your compass on there, and it was essentially dummy corded. Like so. So then you didn't have to worry about losing your compass. All right, moving up, as you guys can see, there's a smaller pouch here. This was a M9 magazine pouch. Now, I wouldn't have had an M9 on my second deployment because I wasn't in a gunner role or a billet. So the only thing I think of is I remember I had bought this little knife here at Abu Ghraib prison, and it even is inscribed Operation Iraqi Freedom Certified, OIF, on the blade. I don't know if the camera will focus on that. But I had bought this knife at Abu Ghraib prison, so I believe, since it fits perfectly in there, that I either had this knife in there or I had one of these Gerbers, because this was the issued Gerber at the time, this type of model. So this Gerber had all kinds of different tools that we as machine gunners would use routinely on our guns to service them. So this could also fit in there. So it's very possible that I kept that Gerber in there as well. I don't recall. Again, guys, it was 20 years ago. All right, moving down. I have another pouch here. This pouch is made by Spec Ops brand. I remember buying this at a PX, and it connected with Alice keepers, as well as it had one little MOLLE style attachment point. But anyways, I had attached this to this side of the web equipment, and this was just a zippered utility pouch. So I could keep stuff in there. I probably kept this equipment in here, or this is where I kept my Nomex flight gloves that I wore all the time in this pouch when I wasn't wearing them. So obviously if I'm going out on patrol, I'm gonna put those gloves on. But you know, when I'm not on patrol, if I'm back at the FOB or back at the rear echelon area or whatever, I'd probably put that stuff in here so that it's always with my gear, so that I always had it. But that's probably what that was used for. Let's move around. It's the side here, okay? So, one of the stark differences between OIF and OIF2 is we were getting better first aid kits. Now, this pouch here, I don't have the contents in it, but this pouch contained a brand new first aid kit that they just started issuing. And these things were a lot better. Before we had the Alice jungle style first aid kits, it was just that, Alice keepers had a plastic box, and that's what our first aid equipment was in there. And there was just basic stuff in there. No tourniquets, guys. Back then, I know it's hard to believe nowadays, but back then the common belief was, hey, use a tourniquet only as a last resort, because if you used it, the guy was gonna lose his limb. It sounds crazy now, but I'm telling you, that's what we were told back then, and that's what we trained on. So tourniquets were not used in the manner that they were now. We had to learn the hard way in the GWAT. But this was the start of us getting much better individual first aid equipment. And it came in a pouch like this, and it had better stuff. I can't remember the exact contents. I'd like to say that that's when Quick Clot and all that stuff started coming out, but I don't recall fully. But the new first aid kits, which were a lot bigger, came in this pouch, and that's where I had mine on my gear. And I don't recall, it probably was SOP that everybody had to have it in a certain spot. I'm pretty sure that was the case. So maybe or maybe not, but it might have been, if it was SOP, the point of that is that everybody knew where your individual first aid kit, because when you're going to work on somebody that's injured, you take their first aid kit to use on them. You don't use your own, because then if you get injured, nobody's got anything to work on you. So that's the idea behind that. All right, going on to the back. So our unit still had Alice canteen pouches.
Okay, we did not have Molly 2 canteen pouches yet. At least the vast majority of us didn't. And the way these secure is, you guys can see there's little adapters that go in onto the Molly webbing, which enable you to attach Alice clips through so that you can wear older equipment like the Alice canteen pouches. So in these canteen pouches, you have, you know, at least one canteen cup. And our canteens would have been this style with the MBC top, not a solid lid. So we were issued the MBC lids. And this is just a heater. I don't recall if we had those or not. I imagine we did. But regardless, you guys can see that you could, you know, heat up a canteen cup with trioxane and stuff, but we were not issued any trioxane tablets. So I'm not sure if we got the heaters or not. I can't recall. But nonetheless, it is an issued piece of gear during that time. And still is, I believe. On the back side is the butt pack. Now the butt pack was a lot longer than your, you know, traditional older style butt packs, but simply is a zippered pouch. You guys can see how much stuff you can get in there. All right, so it closes with a zipper, and then it had these buckles. And then obviously you would tape up any excess strappage, similar to this. But what would I keep in there? Rifle cleaning gear, extra chow. I remember specifically keeping at least a extra magazine worth of ammunition on stripper clips in there. So I remember I had one of those cardboard cartons with 3 stripper clips of 10 rounds, so that's 30 rounds, and then the charger, the spoon, taped with electrical tape, and that was inside my butt pack. So those are some of the components that I remember keeping inside there at that particular time. So again, 2 canteens of water, so 1 quart each, so that's 2 quarts of water. This is my night vision pouch, so I had AN PVS 7 Bravos, and I will discuss those here at length, a little bit more here in a minute. But this is just a pouch. You guys can see it attached with just a simple Fastech style buckle. So I probably just went over the gear like this. It also had a leg tie. I don't know if I ever used that or cut it off or what, but it was there. And this is just a zippered pouch that your AN PVS 7 Bravos would go into, and again, I'll go into more detail on those here in a second. So, but that's where it was attached on my gear at the time, on my left side of my web gear. So, and then moving forward, we're back to the front. There's that 100 round pouch. And that was my web gear and how it was set up at that time. As you guys can see on this fighting load carrier, there's no padding on these shoulder straps. And again, that's because it was designed to be worn in conjunction with your body armor, or it could be worn without. But regardless, you know, there's no padding, which is different than, you know, some of the previous type of equipment that came out, like the LBV 88. So, but that was our deuce gear, and that was how I had it set up. Everybody is probably going to be a little bit different, right? Not everybody's going to be the same. But that's how I wore my deuce gear. Now some other things. This was the issued Camelback at the time. Very basic. Shoulder straps, adjustable. Just this green little, you know, pouch here. Let's see. I don't recall if the mouthpiece looked like this. This is a little bit different bladder. Obviously, if I had a bladder that was 20 years old, it wouldn't be looking too good. But it was a mouthpiece similar to this with a, you know, a valve, shut off, on and off switch. But this was the typical Camelback of the period. Some guys, including myself, bought from the PX a 3-color desert Camelback bladder and carrier, and I don't have it out here on display. I did have it on display in my first video talking about OIF 1,
So if you guys are interested in what that looks like, I'm probably putting up some pictures so you can see it. But this was the issued bladder at the time, so a lot of guys had this. Another piece of gear that I had, and this is my original one that I had on that deployment. I bought this out in Oceanside, California. This is a 2-quart canteen, and yeah, I just had it. I had a black 2-quart canteen pouch. I don't know if that was like the only one they had available at the surplus store that I went to in Oceanside at the time or what, but it was a black Alice canteen pouch with a 2-quart canteen. So, you know, if I needed extra water, I would carry this pouch. And I think I even have pictures of me with this attached to my deuce gear at certain points. So definitely utilize that. The E-tool at the time, so we were Cadillacing. We had the brand new Molly 2 E-tool. So we had the Gerber E-tool. And you could use this as a pickaxe, like so. Or use it in its traditional manner. Just tighten it down. So, but this replaced the Alice version of the E-tool, and it was in this Molly E-tool pouch. So that was the latest and greatest. And we actually had gotten these for the 2003 Iraq invasion. So when we were digging a lot during that, we had the newer style E-tool. So we were fortunate in that regard. Although I'll tell you guys, the Alice E-tool is just as well built and fantastic. So regardless, we had that E-tool. It's a good piece of gear. Different types of gloves. Got the I think these are M1950 leather gloves. These are work gloves. So anytime we were doing, you know, like manual labor, like digging fighting positions or filling sandbags, or you know, having to move concertina wire or something like that, you know, we'd have these. So a lot of times this would probably be in my butt pack as well. So that was a good piece of gear. The, you know, watch cap, glove liners. So Marine Corps issue glove liners. You know, for when it got cold. This is another piece of gear that's specific to OIF2. These are made by Hatch, and these are just knee pads that were issued to us at the time. They are like a neoprene with some foam padding. And man, you guys want to talk about well-built knee pads? So these are the original ones. I used the shit out of these on that deployment. And I used them for several years after that deployment. The only thing I've had to do is re-sew like a corner of this portion right here. So, but these were just black neoprene knee pads that we got issued following the battle in An-Najaf, and they were fantastic. And to this day, I still like this design of knee pad. So I already talked about the mag coupler. So this is not the original mag coupler. The ones I have, I do have the original ones with the original magazines that I used them on. They're in my display case. When I pulled them out, they had actually broken, snapped along these parts. So obviously, you know, it's plastic. Plastic gets old and brittle and snaps. So I just didn't want to bring them out here and risk, you know, breaking them even further. So this is a very close, identical copy to what I carried over there with my rifle. And again, I'll talk about my rifle more here in a little bit. And one other item I almost forgot is a angle head flashlight, red lens capable. Definitely had one. I know other guys had one as well. Not to say that other people didn't have store-bought flashlights, but the big thing is it had to be red lens capable, because that's a big deal with Marines in the field. So next piece of gear I want to talk about is this bandolier right here. Now this is a 6 magazine bandolier, so you can fit 2 magazines in each of these pouches, right? And then it just secures with a button, just like that. Now, about halfway through our deployment, we got up-armored Humvees from the Army. So they plussed up our already existing vehicles. As an infantry line company, we didn't have that many gun trucks to begin with. So when we got to Abu Ghraib prison, the Army actually gave us some that we signed from them and took possession of. And these things were like the legit up-armored vehicles, which was vastly different than what we were used to. Our vehicles just had these like iron L-shaped doors. The Army vehicles were, you know, heavily armored, like they had space shuttle style windows, far better, you know, protection from IED strikes than what we were rolling in. So we started doing a lot more vehicle mounted operations after that. And that's one of the downfalls to wearing exterior deuce gear is it's too cumbersome inside vehicles. So as a machine gunner up in a turret, I had to improvise, adapt, and overcome like Marines do. Hoorah! And how did I do that? Well, I would take my deuce gear off. I would set it in the turret with me off to the side. And I took this is a single, but I had a double magazine pouch, which you guys can see it's Molly. And then the Interceptor has Molly panels on it. I attached that double magazine pouch right there. So that was 2 magazines on my body armor, which didn't interfere with my deuce gear. When I put my deuce gear on, the deuce gear went right around it, so it didn't interfere with that. Plus, it gave me an extra 2 magazines. Additionally, when I was up in the turret, I would wear this bandolier. So that's 6 more magazines on me that didn't interfere with my turret operations while vehicle mounted. I'd also rig up a pop-up. So this is a pop-up signal. This is a White Star parachute. But there's other ones like a Green Star cluster that we'd use signaling purposes, whether that is to, you know, signal an adjacent unit, or if we needed to shoot it at a vehicle to stop it, to signal them like, hey, don't come any further, otherwise you're gonna force us to open up on you, okay? So I would keep that pop-up on there, on that bandolier, on my person. And that's what I did while I was up in the turret. Other things that I might have had on me in my gear or with me while I was up in the turret is a M18 smoke grenade, again for signaling purposes. So this was just a little tidbit piece of gear I wanted to throw in there because I know a lot of you are looking at the pictures of me and you're seeing a black drop leg magazine carrier on my leg and you're wondering what that is. So at some point I purchased from an Iraqi vendor this piece of tactical gear, and there's nothing crazy about it. It's just, you know, some nylon webbing, but you guys can see this would attach to a belt, and it was just Velcro pouches, and it would hold 2 magazines in each pouch, so a total of 4. And yeah, just secured with some, you know, Fastech style straps that went around my leg. And as you guys can see, you know, with me being in the turret and whatnot, like having load bearing equipment on in that turret is very restrictive. So, you know, constantly looking for ways of scaling that back when I was, you know, in there. And I would end up wearing this a lot of times to carry additional magazines. So this is, obviously I didn't paint this in country. I continued to use this after my deployment. And now it's pretty much falling apart, but this was the actual magazine carrier that I wore on my leg about midway to the end of my deployment. All right, now we're gonna start talking about weapons, guys. So, you know, what did I carry in Iraq and as a machine gunner, or what are some of the gear that we carried in terms of weapons? All right, so this is the primary service rifle. This is the M16A4 service rifle. This was what the vast majority of Marines were carrying in 2004 in Bravo Company 1st Battalion 4th Marines. You know, our previous deployment, we had M16A2s, which were fantastic rifles. But they've probably been in Marine Corps service, the ones we were using probably since the late 80s, okay? They were damn near silver. So these were brand new rifles from FN when we got them. This is what my rifle essentially would have looked like towards the end of the deployment with the addition of a buttstock pouch, which I'm gonna talk about here in a second. But going into Iraq, initially, I had a PEC 2 laser, which was fantastic because it enabled me to aim, you know, with my night vision on, which is a step up, okay? And then with these Night Armament Company rails now attached to the M16A4s, you know, you could put something like a broomstick on there. When I was in combat in Najaf, I used a coupler magazine, which I've already talked about. And, you know, the benefit of that is, hey, if I needed to change magazines, take the magazine out, boom, send the bolt forward, and then there you go. It reloads that much faster. Okay, so that was the reasoning behind me carrying a coupled magazine. And then after the Battle of Najaf, we got these reflex mounts, or reflex sights. So this actually is called an ACOG, right?
ACOG, Trigicon, and you know, mostly when you hear ACOG, you think of, you know, the RCO, the Rifle Combat Optic, ACOG, but this thing says ACOG on it. So that's what it was named. But you know, we all called them reflex sights, and you know, it pulls in the light, projects a dot. It doesn't run on batteries, and you know, this was a fantastic step up. We were all using iron sights. And iron sights were not a big deal. We all knew how to use them. You learned how to use iron sights in recruit training back then. And, you know, we'd been in combat in the invasion and in the Battle of An-Najaf with just iron sights. So getting this reflex sight was, hey, now, you know, you're learning to shoot, you know, both eyes open, you're engaging, CQB, all that stuff. Like it made everything a lot easier. Big step up. The thing is we didn't get any training on these things. They literally handed them to us. And I was like, hey, here's a reflex sight, figure it out. So I remember adding this to my rifle, and then I adjusted it to line up with my iron sights. And that's how I zeroed my reflex sight going forward. We also later, after the Battle of An-Najaf, got these Surefire, I think they're G2 flashlights. I don't know if this is the actual specific mount. Probably not that I had, but it was obviously very similar, and that's how I mounted the flashlight to the weapon. And then I had the broomstick under, so I could literally push forward on that button to activate my flashlight when needed. So that was pretty much it, guys. So with the addition of a buttstock pouch right here, this is pretty much what my rifle looked like in 2004. I also had this 3-point sling. And everybody like shits on 3 points, but back then, guys, this was like high speed, because before this, all we had were the parade slings. So if you had a 3-point, man, you were the shiznit. And yeah, they were just self-explanatory. Now, most people, when you're putting on a 3-point, you know, they tell you to put it on like this, so that you can throw it off the side and draw your pistol and all that stuff, right? That's how you're supposed to wear it. I'm telling you right now, how did we wear it? I would say that virtually all of us wore it like this, over our right side, because you do not have a pistol in the infantry generally, unless you're an actual gunner of a machine gun, or if you were an assaultman and you were the actual gunner that had the small rocket. Outside of that, like, nobody had pistols. Everybody had a rifle. So when you were walking around, you know, you throw it off your side and you'd hold it like this, right? So if you're walking to chow, you're walking with your rifle like this, right? So 99% of us, probably if not all, wore it like this, in this manner. That's how we all wore these 3-point slings back then. It is what it is. If that hurts your feelings, I don't care. That's what it was. But this is the exact 3-point that I had at the time, and this was like high-speed freaking gear. The way it was attached around the barrel, around I think what's supposed to happen is it was supposed to go around the handguard, but you can't do that with the A4. There's not enough strap. So everybody essentially attached them to the barrel like this. I think we even did it with the A2 like this too, because you had the PEC 2 mounted right here. So you no longer could utilize any handguard to attach this. And, you know, never burnt off, anything like that. There's nothing that indicates any type of burning or wear and tear on this attachment point right here on this front side. So, you know, burning from hot continuous fire was a non-issue. You know, all the rounds we fired in OIF2 and OIF1, you would think that those would have burned off if that was an issue, and they never did. So, but that's it. That was M16A4 in a nutshell. Fantastic service rifle, and would have no problem going back to war with this again. 20-inch barrel, 5.56. We shot M855 green tip, and you know, I see a lot of people shitting on green tips. Fucking any person I ever saw get hit with a green tip is now in the dirt. So take it for what it's worth. M855 at a 20-inch barrel from an M16A4 was a fantastic combo. Put this out. This is standard, you know, 30-round magazine. I can't remember if I remember the followers were black, but I can't remember if we had the green followers yet at that time. Possibly, possibly not. I don't know. Don't take my word for it. Definitely had black followers though. Those are the older ones. So that's an example of the magazines. I had this magazine in 2004. Obviously, you can't forget a magazine like that. I don't know what happened here, guys. I don't know if it came from the company like that, or just over time, like the color just turned into that gold color. But regardless, I've got the magic freaking gold magazine. I'm sure other people out there have experienced that. M16 cleaning gear. So here's an example of the cleaning gear. You had a chamber brush, a bore brush, an eyelet, and an AP brush, all-purpose brush. You had a 3-rod section, and then you had your T-handle. So that was the cleaning gear, and your sealed pee bottle all went inside this little, rubberized triangular pouch, and then that would go inside your buttstock. Also inside your buttstock would have been your BZO. So when you BZO'd and you put the dope on your weapon, whatever the dope on your weapon was, like that would be annotated on your BZO. So that would be folded up, stuck inside the buttstock along with the cleaning gear. So that's how we, that's how we rolled back then. I know a lot of people don't have storage in their buttstocks anymore because of M4 style buttstocks and other related style buttstocks, but that's, we all had full stocks back then, and that's how we rolled. Now I put this out because as a machine gunner, my gunner would have had a pistol as a secondary. So his primary was his M240 Golf medium machine gun, and then he would have had a M9 Beretta pistol chambered in 9mm, and this was a 15-round magazine. And the M9 is, just nothing special about it. It's just the M9 service pistol is adopted in, I believe, the late 80s, replaced the M1911. And that was the standard service pistol of the time. This is your standard M12 holster, which honestly, it isn't that bad. It's a universal holster. It's just a pull, like a D-ring style pull down, and the pistol goes inside it. This comes over tops and locks in place. And then the attachment system could attach real easily to any belt. If you had like an Alice belt on, you could attach it to that. It was easy to attach to gear. Now this is really high speed. Some guys had these. I don't remember if they went out and bought them themselves, or if the unit just had a few in stock, but this is a Blackhawk leg holster. So this was really high speed at the time, guys. And you can see it's even flapped, right? So if you had that flap undone, M9 would go right in there. All right, there you go. See, that's super high speed back in the day. Blackhawk leg holster. All right, so the unit had, I think, a few of those. So some guys got them, and then obviously some guys could probably go out in town and go buy them if they so choose. So there wasn't as much tactical gear on the market back then as there is now. So that's one thing you got to take in consideration as well. So the vast majority of guys would have used whatever they were issued. But those were the two different types of holsters available for that M9 service pistol at the time. So a couple other accessories associated with the M9 service pistol that you guys might see in photos and be curious about. First, this is a lanyard, just a typical rope that you would attach to your gear. You guys can see the clip here, and it would attach to a little hook point at the bottom of the M9 service pistol. A couple pouches. The Molly pouch is probably the most common among guys. This is the older style Alice pouch. Essentially the same thing, just different types of attachment points. And then obviously that one's in woodland camouflage. Magazine is a 15-round magazine, 9mm ball ammunition. And then you would see this also with guys that are wearing the M12 holster, but in a OD green color. But this was an adapter to convert your M12 holster into essentially a drop leg holster.
So this is a strap that'd go around your leg, and then you guys can see how the M12 attaches with these clips here. You just put that through the MOLLE webbing, and then it had a Velcro piece that would go over the bottom of the M12 holster. So very common, again, in the OD green color, but you'd see guys utilizing that, those that had the M12 holster. All right, next weapon I'm going to talk about, although not very prevalent in 1st Battalion, 4th Marines during our deployment in 2004, is the M4 carbine. Now, I've seen several pictures as I was going through these photos of Marines with M4s during that time period, and they were in weapons company. So I asked my buddy Ryan Van Buskirk about it, asking him who had M4s because, obviously the M16A4 was a standard infantry rifle of the time, and he said that his vehicle commanders and drivers in CAT, Combined Anti-Armor Team, were issued M4s to try out. And obviously you guys can see that an M4 would most likely be preferable over an M16 in a vehicle-mounted operation because you have a 14.5-inch barrel as opposed to a full 20-inch barrel. And you also have the ability to adjust the stock, making it a more compact rifle, easier to get in and out of vehicles. So that was the main reason why those guys had those M4s and during that deployment. So again, M4 carbine, not very prevalent during our deployment. However, they were there. Some Marines did have them. All right, now we're going to talk about my bread and butter, right? The M240 Golf medium machine gun. So this was the primary medium machine gun of the United States Marine Corps of that time. The Army was running the M240 Bravo, and we would ultimately get some M240 Bravos from the Army about halfway through our deployment, plussing up what we already have. But we were running the M240 Golf. Essentially, the same exact machine gun, minus you guys don't see any rails or anything like that up here in where the barrel is. And then the buttstock has on the M240 Bravo has like a piston in it. Outside of that, guys, the machine guns are essentially very identical. But this was our machine gun. It was a 7.62 by 51 millimeter linked belt-fed medium machine gun. Also, we had the M122 tripod. This is essentially the same exact tripod that they used during World War II all the way up to the GWAT, guys. They use these for M1919 machine guns. So same exact tripod, essentially. So this is referred to as the flex mount. Sometimes you hear these things referred to as soft mounts, but our nomenclature was flex mount at the time. And to insert this into the M122 tripod, you simply take this pintle, stick it in, push down that latch, and then this traversing and elevation would go onto the traversing bar. To lock it down, you simply push this lever all the way to the right. To undo it, you go to the left, and then you can manipulate the traversing bar. You always make sure that there was 2 fingers of on top and bottom, and then in order to set the machine gun in, you make sure this retaining pin is out, and then you see these lugs in the front. We just come up, you take these lugs, insert them in there, right? Push down, close that retaining pin, and then your machine gun was locked in place. To remove, pull the pin out, and you take the machine gun off just like that. Now, who would carry what? Typically, your team leader would carry the tripod, as well as some ammunition. Your gunner would carry the M240 machine gun with his secondary pistol, right, along with some ammunition. Your ammo man would carry the T&E, and along with a shit ton of ammunition. So that's what would comprise of the machine gun team. Now, in OIF2, we were severely undermanned. We were down to 2-man machine gun teams. So, if we were carrying all this equipment, it would be incumbent upon the team leader to carry the tripod with T&E along with ammunition, and the gunner would carry his M240 Golf medium machine gun along with lots of ammunition. The sling for the machine gun was this black M60 style sling. So just a piece of nylon, and then it had a padded section here, and then literally the patrol, a guy would just throw this over his shoulder like that, and you can carry the machine gun just like this. If you needed to get down and start firing, you would literally get down to the prone, place your bipod legs on, on the ground and flip that off, grab, and lean into the weapon. So, real easy. Superb machine gun, guys. Just a fantastic design. It's I can't say enough about the M240. It's a fantastic machine gun, and I wish we adopted it sooner. So how was our ammunition prepped? We get an ammo can. This is 200 rounds of 7.62 by 51 millimeter link ammunition. When you open it up, there'll be two 100 round bandoliers in there. These were cardboard containers or boxes with 100 rounds each, and they each had their own respective bandolier. We would rip off the top of that box. We would connect both belts in there, and then you'd situate this so that the rounds, once you opened up, were easy to pull out. So it would simply go through this belt, and then because they were connected on both ends, it would start pulling from the second one once this one's expended. We would also rip off the straps from the bandoliers, tie knots on the end, then we could place these straps inside the box, close the lid, and now we could easily carry that 7.62 link ammunition with a strap, right? You can throw it over your shoulder. And then these things are obviously disposable. Once you get done firing them, kick them off the side. No need to carry it any longer. So here's a couple examples of some spare barrel bags that we would utilize. Let's talk about this one first. It's made by Eagle Industries, and you guys can see it's got a carrying handle, and then on the flip side you have two straps, so you can either wear this like a backpack, throw it over your shoulder, whatever the case may be. A real tough, sturdy case made out of you know, probably some tough nylon. You look in there, you got some pockets in here that you can fit the you know, spare barrel and whatnot. Some other miscellaneous gear. You can strap stuff down, some other SL3 gear. I also remember sticking this M122 tripod in there from time to time, so you can carry the tripod in there as well. Probably throw the T&Es in there as well. But that would zip up. Just a real tough zipper. Just like so. And I remember the actual guns, we had bigger bags that looked just like this bag, but were a lot bigger, and the actual whole gun would go in that as well as this spare barrel bag. So that was one example of a spare barrel bag. Here's another one, and these were used with the saws as well. Again, transitional period, so both this and a Coyote colored one were out there. But these had these nice padded slings, which would be used, you know, could be used for the M240 as a sling or the saw. You guys see the spare barrel bag, and it has these three like straps that come around it. Also has a carrying handle, and it's just a foldable bag. So let's go ahead and open this up. So unsnapped it. And there you go. You got the pad right here for the hot barrel as it's stamped. Over here it says cool barrel only. Okay. You got different components and compartments to hold different things. Here's another compartment right here with straps to strap down barrels and whatever the case may be. Zippered pouch area. So pretty nifty, well-built bag for a hot barrel and cold barrel. So what you do is you would strap this down, roll it up, strap it down, and then you would throw this over your back. So what I remember, and this could be different, but from what I remember, the gunner would throw this, because then this would be on his back, and the team leader could pull the spare barrel directly from his back if we were carrying the spare barrel with us. I want to talk about a few weapons that were organic to the company, but they were primarily used by 0311 riflemen, not us machine gunners. So first and foremost, the standard infantry rifle, obviously still the M16A4 during this deployment, but you guys notice that there's an optic on top, right? Probably a lot of you recognize that. That's an ACOG. So ACOGs were not technically new. We did have some during the 2003 Iraq invasion. At that time, it was about 1 or 2 per platoon. They were designated marksmen assigned to those platoon. They were given a little bit of additional training. Those guys had M16A4s while the rest of us had M16A2 service rifles during that deployment. Fast forward 2004, this deployment that I'm talking about, that number increased to about 1 per squad. So one guy in that squad would at least have the brand new ACOG on their M16A4 service rifle. So you will see this type of configuration on some of the rifles in the pictures I'm showing. Also, you're seeing a picture of me holding an M16A4 with an ACOG, and the reason for that is because when we had established posts at certain FOBs, there would be what were called post weapons. So when you're establishing a post and you want a particular weapon system at a particular post, i.e. this post that I'm showing you guys, we have an M240 Golf medium machine gun, and we also had a M16A4 with a ACOG attached to it. And those weapons stayed on that post. So essentially when you came and assumed post, you fell in on those particular weapons. Obviously having a rifle with an optic, a magnified optic at a post like that at an entry control point is a very good thing, and not during this particular time frame, not everybody had ACOGs, so it makes sense, hey, have certain designated weapons that are attached to that post and you would fall into them. But this was it, guys. This is what a designated marksman rifle essentially would have looked like during OIF 2, a guy with a ACOG. There were also some guys that had the ACOGs, and the ACOGs would be attached to the carrying handle. So all of our fire team leaders would be equipped with 203s, M203 40mm grenade launchers. And at that particular time, there was not M16A4s available yet with the M203 mounts. So all of the team leaders that had M16s, they would have M16A2 service rifles with the M203 40mm grenade launcher. And you guys can see it's got the old school cheese grater style handguard like you see in the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We had what's called a quadrant sight that would attach to the fixed carrying handle. You also had the leaf sight. So the leaf sight is a flip up sight, and it's a really easy way to engage targets with an M203. You simply can tuck this underneath your arm. You can look down and you line up the leaf sight with the front sight post at the given respective range, and you engage targets that way. But the quadrant sight was a little bit more precise, and it literally folds out. There's a front sight post, and there's also a rear sight aperture. And depending on how far the target was, you would adjust the sight to that specific range. And at that point, just like using a rifle sight, you look down the rear sight, line it up with the front sight post, and you gauge targets that way. But that was the quadrant sight, which was attached to all of our guys' rifles that had the M16A2 service rifle with fixed 40mm M203 40mm grenade launcher. I was talking to Zane, and I saw pictures of him. He actually had an ACOG on his M16A2, which was attached to the carrying handle itself. So really cool, guys. Fantastic weapon. Now, what type of rounds did the M203 use? So this is an example of the pouch that those guys would be issued. They would attach this to either their deuce gear or directly to the flak via MOLLE. And typical armament for M203 gunners is you'd have your 40mm high explosive dual purpose, HEDP. It looked a lot like this. You'd also have special purpose rounds that were used for things like signaling. This is a White Star parachute. You guys can see the W on it. There's also rounds like a Red Star cluster or Green Star cluster. And talking to Zane, he also had a special purpose round that was a buckshot round for his M203 that was intended to be used for breaching. So that is the M203 with M16A2 service rifle combo. Zane also told me that towards the end of the deployment, he remembers swapping out his rifle for an M16A4. They finally got the mounting hardware. So towards the end of the deployment, he said he finally got an M16A4 service rifle. But this rifle in combination is what he would have went into the An-Najaf cemetery with in August of 2004. Next weapon is going to be the M249 Squad Automatic Weapon. This is a 5.56 belt-fed light machine gun. Now, you would think being a light machine gun, it'd fall under us 0331 machine gunners. And you're wrong. This is the primary weapon of the automatic rifleman, the 0311 rifleman serving in that automatic rifleman billet. This was their baby. So it's primarily fed from a 200 round detachable box drum that you see here. And the way they'd carry that is they'd get them out of, when they were issued out, they came in 200 round box drums with these bandoliers out of what looks like an oversized 50 caliber ammo can. From there, they would be issued pouches like this. These are MOLLE compatible, and just have a fast tech style buckle, and those drums would go in there. And usually those saw gunners, those automatic riflemen, would have at least 2 of these pouches on their gear. Another means of carrying ammunition, this is a 100 round nut sack. That's what they're typically referred to as. And this is just a smaller, more compact means of carrying that ammunition. But these were out there as well. Some guys had them. I don't know how they got them. Some other gear that'd be associated with the saw would be the spare barrel bag. Now, would guys always have this? Not necessarily, but if they were carrying a spare barrel, they'd carry it in something like this. And this bag, again, transitional period, would be in either woodland or coyote. But this bag, if you open it up, it has a compartment, and you guys can see it's got a section for keeping your hot barrel. So, but this is something that those guys could put the barrel in, and it would cinch up with these buckles. And guys, there's 3 of them. Guys would just throw this on their back with this strap. So that was the hot barrel bag, and this pretty much wraps up the M249 squad automatic weapon. All right, next weapon I'm talking about is the 84mm AT4. So this is essentially a rocket launcher. It's designed for individual carry. It's unguided. Primarily, our 0311 riflemen would be carrying these, but us machine gunners would put these in the back of our on the back side of our turret so that we could use these to engage vehicles or any other enemy structure for that matter. But this very awesome weapon obviously was designed to take on Soviet armor back during the Cold War era. But, we would be using it to blow up insurgent positions. But pretty awesome weapon, easy to understand. The sights were contained inside these enclosed areas. They'd pop up. You also had a shoulder stop right there. Came with a regular parade style sling. And you'd put this on your shoulder. The rear sight was adjustable so that you could adjust it for range. You had a front sight post. And then there's a cocking lever on here. There's a safety and a firing mechanism. So you cock the AT4, depress the safety, and then fire the actual rocket once you've aimed in on your target. If you forgot any of that, the instructions were right there printed on the weapon itself, so you can read those. But good weapon. One of our guys, one of our 0311s, actually took out an enemy machine gun position during the Battle of An-Najaf during the initial 3 days of that fight. So other rocket launchers that we had in the fight, our 0351 Assaultman had the small launcher. Now, that was a specialty weapon, so only the 0351s were the ones that employed that. My good buddy Adam Schwarzy, who's in this picture you guys are seeing, I swear to God, that guy fired more small rockets at enemy positions during the whole entire Iraq War than anybody else. But that was a fantastic weapon, but that was a specialty weapon. Particularly used by the 0351s. This could be used by any infantryman in the company. And one more weapon system that I have to mention that is organic to Bravo Company, as well as the other line companies in the battalion, and that's the M224 60mm mortar. These are pictures of our guys with their 60s set up just outside the An-Najaf cemetery, as well as our positions at Abu Ghraib prison. Those guys were firing missions all the time. Also got to mention that in Weapons Company, they had 81mm mortars. So let's talk about night vision and optics. So what do we have? Well, starting off on the left-hand side, this is a PAS 13. This is a thermal optic. Look how big this is, guys. You would think that this is something from like Vietnam or something, but no, this is something we were used and were issued. We used it in OIF 1 and we still had them in OIF 2. But this is our primary thermal optic. And you could use this handheld like I have it right now, or you could use it weapon mounted. But we, as machine gunners, had them. So these would mount directly to the feed tray, and you could still manipulate the feed tray with it attached. And that was that. So essentially, at least every squad, I think, had at least a PAS 13 in it. So
They just attach via the screw. So it can mount to any weapon system that had a Picatinny rail. But obviously your 0311s probably weren't running around with PAS 13s because these are massive, massive optics. Good optics in the terms of like visibility and everything, but again, big, and the batteries they took were these large square batteries. So very cumbersome. The bag that it came in is this big black bag. So like dudes would literally have to like strap these to their butt pack if they were gonna carry those. So very mission specific type piece of gear. What was a little bit more practical was our PVS 17 Bravos. We also had 17 Charlies, which the only real difference is the lens on the front was a lot bigger between the Charlie and the Bravo. But this is an example of a Bravo. Came in a black bag just like this. You know, just a padded bag. But these would attach just like the PAS 13s, attached to the top cover on the machine gun. And they would issue these out to saw gunners as well. So saw gunners had these, and we machine gunners had these. Boom. So those would attach to the top cover, and there you go. That's how we engage targets at night with the M240 Golf. So as you can see, we don't have any means of attaching any type of PEC lasers. That wouldn't come until, you know, years down the road when the Marine Corps officially adopted the M240 Bravos and, you know, had that capability of mounting them up here. So what other, you know, capabilities do we have at night? For individuals, you had the AN-PVS 7 Bravos. This is what I had in OIF 2 as well as in OIF 1. And, you know, they're all right. You know, they got a lot of hate and discontent, but the reality is, as long as you had a decent pair, you know, it's definitely better than nothing. I'd rather have a pair of 7 Bravos and see with night vision than not have them. All right. So, but there was 2 ways to mount these. You either had a skull crusher, which you know, really sucked because it was either your optic was on your face or you had to put it away, because the skull crusher, you know, it was uncomfortable wearing on your head, and you'd put this on, and then literally you have to put your Kevlar on top of it, and your Kevlar like sat up at an angle. So, or you were wearing it with like a boonie or something, but not the most popular way to mount those. So my Kevlar had an NVG mount, and some of you are probably looking at this like, what the hell is that? This is like an early NVG like Rhino mount. So this is the one I had, and you know, there's not really people know what these are. It's just, you know, it's like a polymer or a plastic mount. Definitely not as durable and as sturdy as modern day ones. But you know, this is what I had, it's what I used, and it worked. So it is what it is. One thing I do want to mention is, as you guys can see, our NVG mounts came off, right? It was a strap. So instead of attaching it directly to the Kevlar, you just came on when the sun was starting to go down. You came on, you threw that over the front. You took this, hooked it onto the back, like that, and then you simply push down on this latch, and it locked the NVG mount onto your Kevlar. Later, obviously, guys would start attaching the plate directly to the Kevlar, which obviously that's a good idea. The other thing is it leaves a little, you know, leaves a nice little silhouette target on your forehead, but, and probably the worst part about it, you couldn't see your Marine Corps emblem on your Kevlar helmet anymore. So here's the AN-PVS 14. As you guys can see, it's a single tube monocular, and contrast that with the AN-PVS 7s, which you're looking both eyes into a single tube. So obviously this is a smaller, more compact optic. From my recollections, our team leaders and squad leaders would get the AN-PVS 14s, while the rest of the guys would probably have AN-PVS 7 Bravos. I also want to point out, guys, is although I had this older polymer style Rhino mount, the vast majority of guys had the newer all metal construction Rhino mounts, and they had this type of mounting plate on their helmets. However, there is another style of mounting plate I have not been able to identify yet. It's very similar, it just has wider claws, as you guys can see in the pictures I'm showing you. But the overwhelming majority of guys were absolutely running this style with this type of rhino mount. That was the way we mounted those MVGs, and this is essentially what we had available to us. AMPVS 7 Bravos. Some people had AMPVS 14s. Usually within the rifleman squads, like the team leaders and squad leaders, were the guys that had the 14s, and the regular, like automatic riflemen and assistant automatic riflemen had 7 Bravos, 17 Bravos and Charlies, and then we had PAS 13s. In the machine gun sections, pretty much all of us had 7 Bravos. Though I think our section leader might have had a PVS 14, I can't recall. But that's ultimately what we were running back then. So packs, what packs did we have? So this is the Molly 2 main pack, and then this is the day pack or patrol pack that came with it. So I can tell you guys, I've been in the Marine Corps over 2 decades now, and this by far was my most hated pack. And I want to like this pack because I deployed with it twice, and it has a lot of good features to it, but ultimately its main Achilles heel was the frame. This is a polymer frame. It's just not up to snuff. It always broke. There wasn't a single pack that came back from deployment that wasn't snapped. So, but it had a lot of good features, guys. You guys can see it's got nice padded straps. It's got a huge, waist pad, waist strap, and drag handle. The pack itself, it was essentially two packs. So you had the upper half and then a lower pack, or lower part. The lower part was where your sleeping system went. So your sleeping system went in there, was completely separate from your main pack. Very easy to get out. That was one of the biggest pluses. Opened up with 2 Fastech style buckles. You had this like underfolding waterproof map type pouch case right here. And then it opened up with a drawstring, and it had a lot of space inside. You also had an exterior pouch right here, which was nice. Kept stuff in there, easy to get to. So, and in addition to that, on the sides were the capability of attaching these MOLLE sustainment pouches, large MOLLE sustainment pouches. So it had a lot of room. Again, there was a lot of good features with this pack. Ultimately, because of the frame, guys, it just got a huge bad rap, and every single one of these broke on us. And overall, because of that reason, I think the pack ultimately was a failure. But again, it was good concept, but if they just had a better frame, it probably would have been a lot more successful. Just to kind of some historical points for y'all, we would put our name tapes right here on the flap. So that's how you knew whose pack it was. It would have a name tape right there, and then you could attach your e-tool and other stuff to the pack itself. It had lashing straps on the sides and things like that. It was a drastic difference from what we were used to with the Alice pack. The patrol pack was awesome. I liked it. I think everybody did. Had a big sturdy carrying handle. Nice straps. It had a sternum strap here, easy to adjust, Fastech style quick release buckles on the bottom. Had a large exterior pouch for, you can carry a lot of stuff in there. Definitely big enough for like a Claymore, but really, really good, roomy pack. Had some MOLLE attachment points on the sides. I love this thing, and as a machine gunner, you can carry the flex mount inside here, a lot of ammunition, extra water, stuff like that, stuff that we needed for the machine gun. So it was almost a guarantee if we were going into the fight, we would have this pack on us. So good, solid pack. Best part of the MOLLE 2 system in terms of the packs is concerned. So main pack, not so much. Day pack, absolutely. All right, so sleeping gear. What do we sleep with? Well, for starters, you got an ISO mat. So this is just a foam mat that you lay on the ground. It puts a barrier between you and the ground so the ground doesn't suck that heat right out of your person. So everybody had that. Then we had a 3-bag sleeping system, which I'll start with the stuff sack. So the stuff sack was just a compression bag. So there's a black bag. It has these compression straps on the sides. So that enabled you to take your sleeping bag, stuff it all inside there, and then you close it with the drawstring at the top. And then once it's in there, you can start pulling down on these straps on all sides, all the way around, to compress it down into a smaller item so that it fits easier in your bag and doesn't take up as much space. Obviously, sleeping bags, they're large, clunky, take up a lot of space in a ruck. If you have a compression bag, it helps, you know, condense that. So first piece of thing in the 3-bag system is your bivy sack. So this is just kind of like an outer Gore-Tex shell. So this would be the exterior of your sleeping system. That way, if you're on the ground, if it rains or whatever the case may be, it protects you from getting wet. It's Gore-Tex, water resistant, very water resistant. Not 100% waterproof. Been in some thunderstorms where bivy sack was definitely compromised, but it's a good piece of gear and definitely does the job. The primary sleeping bag for everybody over there, well, at least while I was there, was your green patrol bag. So this is kind of a intermediate weight. It's a lighter weight sleeping bag, but it's the green one. Again, this is a 3-piece system, but it's a lighter weight patrol sleeping bag. This is what I remember everybody had and everybody used. So it's kind of the perfect weight. You couple that with your poncho liner. So everybody had an M81 Woodland poncho liner. So that was another very highly used piece of gear. It's a warm blanket, same material as a field jacket liner. Good piece of gear. I don't recall, but I can't think of off the top of my head. Maybe people left them back in the States. Maybe people had them over there. I don't remember. But this is the black bag. This is like the heavier sleeping bag for really colder temperatures. Definitely were issued them. So I don't know. I can't remember if we took them or not, or if we left them back in the rear. But this is the black bag, in case some dudes had them. It was all part of that 3 sleeping bag set. So you had your Gore-Tex green bag, black bag, compression sack. And in addition to that, you had a poncho liner, your isomat, and then obviously your regular poncho. If you needed to do like a Ranger roll is just your poncho and your poncho liner, or your bivy sack and your poncho liner combination. So if you needed to be lightweight, but that's what we had to sleep with. That's it, guys. That completes this video over the uniforms, gear, weapons, and equipment that I carried specifically as an 0331 machine gunner in Bravo Company 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, part of the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit in 2004 for our deployment to Iraq. If you guys want to learn more about the Battle of An-Najaf and what we did there, there's 2 great reference materials out there. First one is from the Marine Corps History Division. It's called U.S. Marines in Battle, An-Najaf, August 2004. This is jam-packed with a lot of fantastic information. It's actually free online PDF that you can download. I'll post the link in the information box, as well as a book written by the author Dick Camp. It's called Battle for the City of the Dead, in the Shadow of the Golden Dome, Najaf, August 2004. And this is a fantastic book. I highly enjoyed reading it because it gave me a better understanding of what was transpiring around me while I was hooking jabbing in the Najaf Cemetery. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I definitely enjoyed sharing this material with you guys and working on this project. And I hope you guys stick around and check out some of the stuff I got coming down the pipe. Thanks for watching.